talking about sports and athletics. So, I wish I knew this information when I was in high school and college playing soccer and basketball, or even high school. I remember having some urgency with track and high jump, with nerves and being anxious. And then I had some stress incontinence as a college level athlete. I was able to run, but when I was doing a timed mile, I was giving it my all, and there was leakage happening, and it was around a track with guys practicing football. So that was not ideal. But I didn't associate what was going on at the time. But if I had the awareness, and I'd like to get the awareness out to these younger athletes, I could have protected myself from some potential pelvic organ prolapse, that like shifting of the bladder or the uterus or the rectum. And also been able to, not only prevent or eliminate some of the urinary symptoms, but also to protect myself from these things, but also to increase my performance, to do better, to be faster, to be stronger. I think, I'm in my 40s and I'm still playing sports, and I think I'm better than I was in my 20s, because I have a better core. I've got a better endurance, a better foundation, to be able to bring all those systems together. And then also, I've had two kids, vaginal deliveries. So, recovery of the pelvic floor and the connective tissue and that aspect, but also, getting back to sports. The ego is really, it's really hard. Like, yeah, I know you got to be patient and you got to let your body heal, but, you want to get back. You want to, be doing everything you were doing before, and you want to look great, and it's hard to be patient, but it's really important to allow yourself to kind of find what your borders are. And that's a big piece of what I do and emphasize, is to find where your borders are. What can you do? What pieces can you do with good breath, good posture, and protecting yourself? Get good at that, and then add the next level of challenge. Challenging our system is how you continue to be strong and develop. So loading and getting that strengthening piece, not avoiding activities, but doing it in a responsible way. And then I've also had a herniated lumbar disc. So being able to manage, all this posture and this breathing and pressures, to be able to help protect my back, and to be able to support my nervous system, so I can be a parent and I can do my work and I can get in and out of the car, and lift the laundry basket up the stairs. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Some intentions for today. So I'm going to explain what the components of the true core system are. So sometimes we think it's our abs, or, we've got some hints and awareness of what the core is, but to actually put all the pieces together is important, because that's how you can really start to understand and start to like apply the concepts to movement, and to start to really relearn more successful strategies and safer strategies to prevent injury or symptoms. The considerations for performance enhancement, and then to prevent or reduce any symptoms for injury that may be happening or be a potential risk for. And then I'd like to troubleshoot some specific exercises and functional tasks as well. So we can look at, break down running, break down cycling, break down jumping, jump rope, double unders, box jumps, different tasks like that. Okay, so the true core system. So we've got our pelvic floor muscles. We've got the diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm, the transverse abdominals, and the multifidi. So if you consider this structure as our core system. And if you look at it as a house, so the roof is your respiratory diaphragm, so that muscle, that umbrella-like muscle under the rib cage, your diaphragm. Your pelvic floor is that group of muscles at the bottom of the pelvis. They are like parentheses of each other, okay? And then you have your walls of the house, so roof, floor, we've got the walls are your transverse abdominals. The transverse abdominals are the deeper corset-like abdominal muscles that wrap around the front and kind of come way to the back. And then you have multifidus muscle. Those are the deeper back stabilizers. So you've got that kind of house structure. And so here's the pelvis, okay? It's the pubic bone, the front of the pelvis. And I'm going to tip it so you're looking up from the bottom of the pelvis. So these are the pelvic floor muscles. So when I talk about the parentheses, this is kind of like that basket at the bottom of the pelvis. Okay, we've got that basket. And then it's very similar. You've got your rib cage above it and the respiratory diaphragm. It's my hand up here. So we've got these two muscle groups like that. Okay. And I'm going to show another visual just so you can kind of get a concept of those four muscle groups that they work together. So let me come over here. Okay, this guy gives me a little trouble, so bear with me. I'll make him bigger. Oh wait, hold on. Got to screen share it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take away some muscles here. Okay, make them a little bit bigger. All right, so I kind of stripped away the abdominal wall here, and I'm going to tip this guy upside down. So we're looking up underneath the rib cage, and here's that nice respiratory diaphragm. Okay, and then we're going to tip him the other way. And here's some of the pelvic floor muscles. It doesn't have all of them, but some of them, it kind of starts to, you can see that basket underneath. So they're like parentheses of each other, okay? And then I'm going to add, so we've got the roof and the floor. Now we're going to add the transverse abdominals. So here is that corset, the walls. And I'd like to show, I'm going to turn to the back. You can see how far around that transverse abdominals wrap. And then you've got the multifidus muscles, the back stabilizers through here. Okay, so that's your core stabilizing system. Just get back to, there we go. Okay, so now some main concepts that I want to go over. We're going to be some core concepts. We're going to be talking about variance, having flexibility through our movements and having options to pull from, dynamic movement versus isometric contraction. So, I just kind of put together those four main motor components. If you try to take out just the pelvic floor, if you just want to focus and isolate the pelvic floor, the rest of the system doesn't know how to function without its key component, the pelvic floor. Same thing, so the three are able to function without the pelvic floor, but the pelvic floor isn't going to be able to function without the other three. So, isolating and taking one muscle group out isn't necessarily the answer to be able to start to develop your core system. So looking at dynamic movements, looking at the whole system, looking at the team players and how they're interacting together. Also looking at lengthening as well as shortening. So our muscles lengthen and shorten to contract. If we're always focusing on the shortening and the contraction, and the tension part of it, then we're not going to have the range of motion or the endurance or the energy to have a good, effective contraction. So, a lot of times we get hung up on, all right, I've got some symptoms that are pelvic floor and I'm going to start to do Kegels. So if I'm having some leakage or some prolapse, some heaviness feeling, or some, weak core, or some pain, some pelvic pain, I'm going to start to do my Kegels. Well, if we're sitting there just contracting something over and over, one, we're isolating it, so we're not looking at the whole system. But the other thing is we're not looking at what makes a muscle strong. In order to have a strong contraction, you need to be able to lengthen to generate a good contraction. So we can talk more about kind of what lengthening versus shortening looks like. But then looking at your mid-range and the accessibility of your system. So I talk a lot about posture, and the reason being is that if you set up your muscles in a more optimal range, they can then contract. If they're stretched, if they're overstretched, or if they're shortened, then they're not accessible to be able to recruit activity and strength. So being able to find, a good mid-range can be a really great way to just turn on that system. So that's why the posture, we'll talk about the pelvic posture and the rib posture to be able to line up those four main muscle groups so they can interact and do what they're supposed to do. Julie Weeb does a good explanation of trying to, pull together that whole system. So she talks about, if you've got your bicep here down by your side, it's lengthened, and you go to try to contract it without moving, just do an isometric contraction. You can do it, but it kind of feels a little awkward. It doesn't really have much oomph behind it. And then if you take it up to a mid-range and bend your elbow, now go ahead and try to contract that bicep. I can feel it a little bit more. Okay, so I've got a little bit more behind it. And then if I make a fist and then squeeze my bicep, now I've got a really good contraction and I can see my bicep now. So she kind of correlates the association with the brain likes to have a team behind it. So it really understands relationships, and it also really understands function. So I've put it into a nice mid-range where I can assess or access that muscle better. I've made the fist, I've brought in some neighbors to help recruit and get the brain to understand that it's time to work. But if I then go lift something, now my brain's like, oh yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to contract and I'm supposed to shorten and move that elbow. So you find postures that can call on the system better. Bring in other muscle groups, like we're talking about the pelvic floor, bring in the glutes, bring in the abs, bring in all those muscles around it, and then add a task, a functional task. Like we can do like an isolated exercise, but our brain kind of gets bored and turns off. If we're actually doing something that it is interested in and that it needs to do or wants to do, then you're going to have just a much better outcome for improvement and performance and success. And then breath and pressure management. We're going to talk about how the breathing plays into the relationship of those muscles. And then Anthony Lowe he's a physio. He does a great job of just really, keeping things basic, the basic concepts of do something different and spread the load. So, if you've got symptoms, you're getting pain when you're doing this one task, or you've got leakage, or you feel heaviness or prolapse, those are signals that something's breaking down in the system, and do something different. So let's try changing up the posture. There's no cookie cutter recipe. Everybody's different. Everybody's got different muscle tensions and different postures and just things going on. And our bodies, are all very individualized as to how we come up with compensatory techniques, or just even figure out the best way for our bodies to sit up or stand up or do that task. So it's always going to be different, but it's, trying some different positions and different breathing strategies and figure out, well, which one felt better, which one made it easier, which one were you able to do 5 more pounds with, or which one were you able to do that without leaking. So do something different and then spread the load. So if you're feeling, especially if it's like weightlifting, if you're feeling a lot of tension in this one hip or in your upper back or, in one focused area, stop, reset kind of the alignment and the breathing, and then try to spread that load so you're not gripping or having a forced tension in one specific area. And then looking at task analysis. So just breaking it down. Are you back on your heels? Are you forward? Can we access those glutes in a different way? Can we use your inhale to lengthen, to be able to get a better position, and then use the exhale to engage and strengthen? And we'll talk about all those concepts as well. To just troubleshoot what it is specifically for you that you're looking to do. Okay, so the breath. So the body's primary focus is to breathe. You've got to be breathing. That's its number one concern. If you're struggling to breathe, if you're in a position where it makes it difficult for that respiratory diaphragm to have excursion, to lengthen on the inhale and to recoil back, if it's in a less optimal position, or if there's other pressures that's interrupting that, it's not going to be able to focus on engaging your core, or bringing your glutes online, or being able to jump faster or longer or further. It's going to be focusing on being able to breathe. So being able to align yourself to be able to have an easy breath is just a great way to be able to make everything else more accessible.